I'm glad to be back and welcome to the Better Divorce podcast, getting close to the end of 2025 and ringing in 2026. And likely when you hear this episode, it will be 2026. So I'm not really wishing the year away, Ally, but I do at least want to, kind of call to mind that, when we're recording this, Thanksgiving, we've put that to bed, and the December crazy holiday schedule is starting with travel plans and all, and coming into January. And January 5th, or is it 6th this year, whatever the Monday is known as National Divorce Day. And that's when most divorces are at least talked about, discussed, contemplated, sometimes initiated or filed by women, 73%. And when you and I met a little back ago, we had talked about the overlap, or the kind of the juxtaposition and collaboration of the work you do as a relationship designer. That's sort of a fun term. And the work I do as a divorce expert, mediator, and coach to help women get the clarity they need on their marriages or marriage. Sometimes there's more than one. Marriages as a whole, of clients having more than one marriage, and determining whether this is a relationship they in fact want to stay in, or in fact they feel this is a relationship that has run its course. The sacred contract has expired. That's my term, not Ally's. And just getting that litmus test, that diagnosis of where I am. And I've spoken with and interviewed probably a dozen or two relationship coaches over the last 10 years. I cannot believe January now is season 10. Of course, this used to be called Thriving in Chaos, which everyone knows that's what it is. And then when I came back to the States, I renamed it the Better Divorce Podcast. So I want to welcome Ally Iseman to the show. Is probably as one of the first episodes of the new year. And I thought, what better topic to bang the new year off with fireworks, about talking about relationships and love and sexuality. So welcome to the show, Ally. I'm thrilled you are here.
Thank you so much. Honestly, it is such an honor to know that I'll be a part of launching season 10. That's such an incredible achievement. I know you told me this started on a dare. That's well done. I think you won that dare.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know that, I'm originally from Boston. This used to be a radio show in the Boston area, and I was a guest and did a few episodes with the host. And then it sort of transitioned when I moved to Belize into a podcast back in 2016. And here we are coming up on 2026. So I can't believe I said that. So let's just say her credentials are varied. She knows what she's talking about. I had the honor of meeting Alia, I would say a few months ago, when the two of us were invited into this incredible women's professional collaborative with Erin Keating. I just reinvented her name. And Sarah, please remind me Sarah's last name.
Oh, you put me on the spot. I have to look
That's
it up
okay.
because I know
It
Aaron
will get
first.
you. Erin Keating, the Broad Collective, everybody look it up. And so the two of us were invited into this sort of beta cohort group and in a small expert panel of professionals in their fields. And man, we are varied. And in fact, I would love to do an episode with all of us because it would be very
Round
fun.
table.
Yes, it
Yeah.
would be with Erin and Sarah and you and I and all the others. So especially the comedy experts. So,
Oh,
so
yes.
let's get into your story before I go on my famous tangents. So tell us a little bit about what you do and your background so everybody understands why I invited you to be a guest to
Yeah.
start the new year.
Absolutely. So you spoke a little bit to, I work with relationship design, and that's a term that a lot of people go like, what does that even mean? So it's really about understanding what your needs are. And what I do is I help individuals, couples, and more sons, depending on the relationship structure, build a relationship of their dreams, not someone else's. So whether that's their dating life, their current relationship, expanding their relationship into some sort of new style, I help them learn how to design that without risking it all, because it is intentional. We think about every area of your life, right? You have goals in work, you have goals maybe in fitness, et cetera, et cetera. We achieve those things by making a plan, initiating a strategy around that. But we don't really do that with our relationships. And most importantly, our core relationships, our love partners, our sexual partners. We expect them to, we expect these relationships to work for us without us doing any work for them. And so what I do is I help people understand how to do that strategically, so they're not wasting a bunch of time, energy, and heartbreak on something that isn't even serving anybody.
Very nicely put. And I am a big proponent of having a plan, a
Yes.
blueprint, a G.
Organized chaos, I like to call it.
Because most of us don't go into life or life decisions or life choices with a plan. We throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, right? Or just sort of wing it and what do we hope for the best?
I mean, quite literally, especially when it comes to relationships, like I always reference, think of the examples most of us get given, right? Like Disney, fairy tales, rom-coms, they all end at the beginning of the relationship. So what's the happily ever after? No one's got a plan. It's supposed to work because we felt something. That's not a great strategy.
Yes, you're so correct. It would be wonderful if every Disney movie or rom-com had, chapter one was that we met, boy meets girl, girl meets boy, and blah blah blah. And then now what? Right? Now
Yeah.
what?
I want to see how Ariel does her taxes. Tell me more.
Yeah. That would be interesting. It would maybe the children wouldn't like it so much, but
Yeah, this is the
maybe
adult
better
version.
lesson. But you're so correct. It's supposed to be assumed, right, that that's enough. That's
Yeah,
enough
we
to
did
just
it. We
have
got
that
here.
spark. And then you take it from there. Both of you know what you're supposed to do with the rest of your life, and
Yeah, and have
also
it figured
having
out already.
congruent goals and moving forward with that relationship, and just it's supposed to work, right? And as we
Yeah.
know from statistics, uh, unfortunately, as and most people know, I'm not a proponent of divorce. I do not run around going, "Are you sure you don't want to get divorced? You two look miserable." But about
Here's my
50%
card.
of first marriage. There are many times I've wanted to say that, Ally, but I have contained my comments and sarcasm. No, about 50% of first marriages at some point will end in divorce. Sometimes it's 40%, sometimes 55%, but just an overall average over the course of time within that first marriage. So, statistics are not better for the second or third marriage, right? And the
Just
idea
progressively
that
worse.
we, in fact, want to be in another relationship, a second marriage, a third marriage. I mean, I'm in a second marriage. I'm not anticipating a third marriage. So far, so good. But when you look at the statistics, honey, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not good. It does say that people are going to at some point get divorced.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your background and what possessed you. What was that calling or longing as a young girl, as a young woman, to say, this is really something I'm passionate about. I want to study. I want to become an expert at. Tell me about your path. How did this come to be?
Well, like you, I'm very pragmatic. I like observation. And I didn't know this is, I'm not dead yet. This may take a new form somewhere down the line as well. If you told me I'd be doing this, 15 years ago, I would have been like, what? So, it's a
I can
nonlinear
I
path.
can attest to that. Yes.
Yeah. And much like you as well, it's that, understanding what you understand about the landscape, if you will, of relationship. It's really my mission to just help people do it better, because it's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Relating is a skill set. Communication, conflict resolution, how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, personal development. Relationship is a landscape for personal development, but we're not actually teaching ourselves the skills, and we're just putting the next marriage on and the next marriage on. But if you haven't actually developed any new skill sets, of course, there's not going to be much of a different result. Maybe, possibly, but rewinding. So for me, I never really went through the cooties phase. I had like my first, boyfriend, if you can be called that, was in like kindergarten, first grade. First kiss was a French kiss. My swing set in his backyard. Like I was just like, yeah, this is connecting is fun. It feels good to connect with other humans being. And so I kind of always did. And at the same time, when I was, preteen or whatever, I made the decision that I was waiting for sex till marriage. Don't know why that wasn't impressed upon me, or, I mean, at least directly, I'm sure society, there's messaging. But again, I've always been someone who's very pragmatic and analytical and just kind of looking for patterns. And so, at some point in college, I realized, oh, I don't even know if I want to get married, because I've come to understand what marriage really is, the contract of marriage, mergers and acquisitions. It's a legal partnership. It has nothing to do with love, romance, anything like that. I don't know if it's a fit for me. So what am I waiting for that for? So that affected some decisions I made. Fast forward a few more years, and I had realized I had always been what I call a serial monogamist. So I had only been dating men at this time as well. I was closeted in just about every way. Only dating men, would date them for about the same amount of time, generally an average of about 2 years, 2 to 3 years, be single for about the same amount of time in between, generally about 4 to 6 months, and then boom, into the next relationship, over and over and over. And like I said, when I notice something's happening over and over and over, and I'm not changing any variables, I want to change a variable. Let's see what's on the other side of that. Let's be single for a little bit longer than I'm used to being, and let's see what's on the other side. And what's on the other side was all of my shit. So that began my personal development journey, and just really learning more about myself and what I want and what my needs are, because I never actually thought about that. You show up, especially as someone, socialized as a woman, we're here for others. It's such an easy pattern to slip into. My pleasure is about someone else's. My life goals are about my partner, et cetera, et cetera. So really starting to reflect on what is it that I actually wanted. And then still did get into a few more monogamous relationships with men. And at this point, at least, I knew a bit more about myself. So I was better at asking for what I wanted around a number of different things, lifestyle stuff, sex stuff, all of that. And started opening up the idea of, I think I might be bisexual. I think I might want to, date women. And so it was, yeah, sure, we can, have a threesome with another woman. That never manifested. And then that led to what became my last monogamous relationship. And this was a partnership which lasted about a little over 2 years. And this is somebody who traveled a lot for work, and I would join him when I could, but I wasn't always able to. And it's something we had talked about a little. And again, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done things a lot differently. That's growth. So we had talked about maybe, if he's away and I can't be with him, if he connects with somebody while he's on the road, send me a PG-13 consensual photo so I know who you're hanging out with, and have a great time and tell me about it later. I thought I had been experiencing jealousy up to this point, but it was pleasurable. And that's actually a term called compersion, which we can talk about later. I don't want to get too in the weeds with terminology, but for me, it felt good, that idea. And I know that's not the case for everyone, but it was something, we agreed to. He ended up meeting somebody, sent me a photo. She was super cute. I was excited. They ended up just staying up all night talking. But I was thrilled. It felt so exciting. It felt so fresh and yummy. And I felt very connected to him through that experience. And so another time he was out of town, and I had a friend of mine coming into town separate from me. He was coming in for work or something. And we had known each other for 6 or 7 years at this point, and had already explored, is there something more here? Because we had had sex, and we're friends and we're hot and we like having sex. That's just one of the activities we enjoy together. And so for me, it felt like a very safe environment. This is somebody I know, someone I feel safe with. We've already been down that road. There's no, risk here. And so my partner gave me what he called his green light. My friend and I had a wonderful night together. It was a lovely bonding experience for us as well. I learned his previous relationship had been open, which I didn't know about either. So we got to talk about that. But for me, it also opened up something I call expansive love. My partner, although he was not physically present, was such a part of the experience for me. I felt intrinsically connected to him. I felt gratitude, love, appreciation, longing. I couldn't wait to see him. I couldn't wait to talk to him. And so we agreed that I would call him afterwards. And so I called him, just gushing with so much appreciation. Can't wait to see you. Do you want to hear anything? I'm happy to share. And it was just dead silence. And then all he said was, I can't believe you did it. And so that's not what I was expecting. So it was a very high moment to a crashing down immediate low. And to this day, honestly, I don't know if he, thought he would have been okay with it and then wasn't and didn't know how to handle that, if he had been, testing me or something like that. Either way, we spent a couple more weeks trying to figure things out. And there were other issues in the relationship as well. But ultimately, we did end our relationship. And I realized this is something very real for me. I need to explore what this even means. And I don't want any more emotional casualties on my conscience. So, all right, universe, like, never done the dating apps. I've seen Eyes Wide Shut. There's stuff out there. Like, let's go. Yes to everything. And so I just started exploring. And I got very lucky with, connecting with some communities. I became a community organizer and leader in the erotic lifestyle space, been an educator, a mentor. A lot of couples come to me who are looking to explore and how to do so intentionally with the, mitigating risk and harm, of course. And there are strategies around this. And like you said, you're not a proponent of divorce. You're not like screaming divorce from the rooftops. I don't want anyone to hear me as saying non-monogamy, polyamory, good, monogamy, bad. Absolutely not what I'm saying. Relationship design, good. Relationship default, not so great. Are we actually creating relationships that support our needs, that the people we're in relationship with can actually consensually agree to? Are we all informed about our options so we know what we can even do together? It sounds messy and complicated only because we're not talking about it. When you talk about it and you understand these are actual skill sets, there's strategy here, just like anything, it becomes just the way you relate. It's just part of how I connect with people, how I see the world. I'm able to love now the people I care about to the fullest degree possible. I thought I had been doing that in monogamy, but that structure actually didn't support the way I best and fully show up for the people I care about. So now I've been able to, again, in partnership with those I'm, dating and relating with, build relationship structures that actually support us showing up in the most authentic, full way possible for each other. That's the long and long of it. But for me, it's really like the mission is fundamentally boils down to if we have better relationships that last longer, we will have a better world that lasts longer. And I don't mean that, length is the only measure of success. We can absolutely talk about that too. But relationships by design, intentional relationship design. That's what I'm about.
Yes, and I also see that in other, it breeds or bleeds or, filters into other parts of life besides just the romantic
100%.
sexual life, right? So
100%.
family dynamics, your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends, your children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because intentionality is a deliberate, intentional, I'm using the same word twice, but conscious
Yeah.
choice, right? Versus subconsciously just flittering through life and allowing things to unfold as they should when you don't have a plan.
Yeah.
Again, in my crying chair, which I would turn the camera and I guess I might as well, right? My little
Let's do
chair
it.
there.
There she
Right,
is.
my little flower pillow. Oh, there's kind of, so in my little crying chair. Not all my clients are local. Again, I would say 50% are local and 50% are not. So it just is effective. But when they do come to my safe container, the stories, the experiences, the feelings of a lot of what you spoke about of dating and what you thought you wanted as a young woman and not really knowing and kind of experimenting with things. And so of course society has defined what relationships look like. And yes, society and judiciously, legally, society has determined what marriage looks like, right? And that's it is a legal binding contract, which if that's a news flash to you, listener, it's uh-oh. It's not just a ring on your finger. It isn't about a dress and a party and a honeymoon and a cake and invites and all that stuff. It is a legal binding contract. And much of that can be confusing when you're, I don't know, 17, 25, 32, whatever age you are when you make that decision, or 50, 51, decide to get married, right? It is a major decision, and you now have to live within the confines of those parameters, that little box of the rules, the conduct, shall we say, of what marriage looks like. And there can lead to a lot of, you touched on jealousy.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, something many times people will come to me and say, I know he has a mistress. I believe he's messing around. I think he's cheating, or she. I don't mean, it isn't always the guy, but, and the pain that they feel because of that, and the
Mm-hmm.
confusion, because those things happened behind closed doors without them
Mm-hmm.
knowing. There was zero intentionality. Now, again, Ally and I are not saying those things are necessarily good or bad, but that, let's just look at the facts. They happen. And
Yeah.
I also don't believe that infidelity is the main reason. And I should know, I hear it all the time, that people divorce. Now, it may
Mm-hmm.
be an impetus or a tipping point, or
Mm-hmm.
as we heard as children, the straw that broke the camel's back. But when you really dig under the surface of the sexuality, the infidelity, the affairs, the cheating, the one night stand, the relationship, whatever it is, they're typically, in my world, with being, a mediator and a divorce coach, it isn't the reason. And
Oh yeah.
85% of those couples who have infidelity in them remain married.
Mm-hmm. I think you're touching on such an important topic. A few different things in that. It's I absolutely couldn't agree with you more. Generally, infidelity or cheating, which I want to be specific, is not necessarily sex. And you can also be cheated on if you're non-monogamous as well. It's about dishonesty. It's about breaking agreements. And that is never the cause. It's a symptom of something else going on. So it's important to know about it, but really treat it for what it is. It's a symptom. What's really going on under the surface? I think you said it beautifully. And there's so much value in exploring that. And another thing that comes up that I heard you kind of speak to is something I call compound meanings. So socially, we think of marriage, we think of love, romance. It's a compound meaning. Marriage is just a legally binding contract about mergers and acquisitions of assets. That's it. Like, who gets what when whatever happens down the line. Romance, great. Sex, great. Love, commitment, these are all wonderful ingredients. None of them are synonyms, but we treat them like they are. And that's where we really get into trouble, because then we also don't talk about the actual definition of them. Even cheating is a great example. If you put 10 people in a room, say it's 5 couples, and you ask each of them their definition of cheating, you're probably going to get about 10 different answers. We don't actually ever talk about what that thing is, because we're not talking about our agreements, which is all a relationship is. We kind of shorthand with the marriage, thinking, marriage contract, that's it, we've got it sorted out. But all of that, again, it's going back to how we treat relationships like a destination in our society. It's like, oh, we got there, we did it, we're married now, we've arrived.
We're
But that's why I
done.
call, yeah, exactly, we're done, nothing else to figure out, we achieved the thing. And then no wonder people are going, wait, that's it, like, how do we actually do this thing? Because it's not a destination. It's why I call them a relation trip. It's an ongoing conversation. You're both growing, you're changing, life is happening the whole time, so much life. And understanding how to actually navigate those things. Step one, what are the words you're using? Do you have a shared language? Do you understand things like cheating, commitment? Like, what are those qualities in your relationship? Do you have an agreed upon definition and an agreed upon strategy to make sure that the ones you want in there stay in there, and the ones you want don't, or the ones you don't want don't?
Very true. Uh, I'm glad you brought up the point of what I call emotional infidelity, right? Because there are many
Mm-hmm.
different, it isn't always just eggplant and peach, So
Yeah.
not to talk emojis here, but I never know if there's a child listening in the car.
Yeah.
Probably not this topic, but so it isn't always just that part of sexuality, right?
Yeah.
So there's that feeling of when you have good news or something bad has happened, if your spouse, if the desire to share with your spouse is not there first, and you
Yeah.
going to another venue, avenue, person, a forum to communicate, your good news, happy news, blissful news, joyful news, or, I got a promotion, I won the lottery, or I don't know if that was an interesting example that came out of my brain, or, I lost my job, or, whatever it is, or I've,
Yeah.
whatever
And
it
looking
is that
vulnerable.
happened, if it's not the person that you want to pick up or text or email or call or share with, I got some good news I can't wait to tell you. If you're going to someone else, and if you're sharing photographs or romantic, cute, flirty conversations or innuendo, it absolutely is emotional infidelity. It depends on the context, of course, but if your spouse isn't that person that you want to go to first, it causes a slow trickle down breakdown of the relationship and trust. And that is, again, almost as hard to make up for or to fix or to repair than I'll never get intimate with another person. So,
It can
yeah.
be more insidious, for sure.
Yes, and it's also more hidden, Allie, right? It's like it's you can rationalize it, or that never happened, or I never said that, or I never did that, and a little bit of self-gaslighting, a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
gaslighting, like, well, it was just a phone call. What's the big deal, or
Mm-hmm.
I just bought him a cup of coffee, or whatever it was. I'm making this up. That's not the point, right? If it's a secret and it's a
That
break of
exactly.
trust, then it isn't really a relationship by design.
Yeah,
It's by
absolutely. It's by
happenstance.
avoidance. You're avoiding whatever it is that's going on, understandably so, right? We're
Yeah.
not taught how to have these conversations of how to be like, I've noticed a shift within me. I'm not feeling called to reach out to you when this stuff's going on. I want to talk about why that might be. Happy to get professional support in that. These are the conversations that happen in long-term relation that need to happen in long-term relationships rather than treated like a failure. It's just information. Oh,
Right.
what's going on? Just like, any kind of cheating, it's a symptom. So what's actually going on? What, or have we not been nurturing our intimacy in whatever form, which again doesn't have to be physical? What's actually going on? But when we're avoiding that, when we're avoiding, God forbid we make a mistake, which is such an important actual opportunity. We can talk about that as well. I think we really miss out on a lot when we're building relationships around avoiding potential mistakes rather than moving towards what we want. Um, but yeah, I feel like I go on a tangent here. I don't want to
No,
derail
no,
the conversation.
tangents are always good. You brought up some things that are important. One thing, when you use that word avoidance, I was speaking to a client last night, and 26-year marriage, 18 or 19 or 20-year-old adult child, so we don't have to worry about custody or child support, phew. 26 years married, have not been living together for 2 to 3 years, but still on paper are married. And she was the first to admit, although it took 4 to 6 months to have her verbalize to me, as probably others too, that she, to this point, has lived her whole marriage and life to avoid conflict.
Right.
And the idea of divorcing is, well, what is it? Conflict. you know,
Yeah. Good
because
one.
it's
Simple.
unless both people say, "Yep, peace out, I'm done. Where do we sign?" Which is 10% of the time that both parties are 100%. I have mediated them. They're a joy. They both show up, sit down, we talk, we write it up. They're like, "Thank God we
One of those
found
fun
you."
divorces.
Woo! I mean, and they drive off, and I'm like, "Are you sure you guys want to get divorced?" But who am I to tell them?
Oh, which let's talk about that too.
Yeah, it is interesting. The last time that happened, it was I'm going to say 2 or 3 months ago, and they're well, one, they went ahead with it. Once they put it on hold, so you never know. But I usually don't ask because it isn't my part to say, I'm not the therapist here. But sometimes I can come in the back door and ask the hint of question like, man, if I didn't know better, I thought I would think you guys were, just met and all that. But yeah, who am I to say? But point taken. It is a revelation, an awakening of the soul when you can feel your feelings, acknowledge that you are avoiding conflict at all costs, right?
So
And
nice.
you can't be in a relationship that's healthy, and avoid conflict at all costs all the time.
You're not even
It's
in a good relationship with yourself. You're not taking care of
exactly
yourself if you're operating that way.
right. Yeah, very into. So, I recommended that she read Melody Beattie's book called Codependent No More. And that's
Good
a
one.
whole nother conversation. Melody, Melody, Beattie, Codependent No More, for those of you listening. I'll put it in the show notes. She just passed away last February, unfortunately, and has written 13, 15 books on this concept of codependency, and basically saying stuck in a relationship because you feel like you're lost your identity, your feelings, and you have to do everything to make everyone happy. So, and we talked about it, and being stuck and trapped in this relationship that is basically dead, right? Not living together. I mean, she said it's been years since they've been intimate, years and years and years and years. No judgment, it is what it is. But coming up with it, there's no design, there's no plan, being miserable, feeling trapped, feeling stuck, feeling, all of those horrible feelings, fearful, abandoned, unloved, questioned, criticized. Who wants to be in a relationship like that? I certainly don't know anyone. Well, that puts up with that anymore, at least once they
Yeah.
meet. And probably you too. So let's walk through the listener here who is maybe curious about designing a relationship, monogamous, non-monogamous, whatever, and what it looks like to maybe work with an individual client to make that happen. And I'm sure it doesn't happen in a minute. And then what it might look like
One
for
session.
right. Check.
In and
We
out.
got that accomplished. Oh, and also on the other hand, what it might look like to work with for a couple to come to you and work with you, right? So I'm assuming there's maybe slightly different approaches and conversations, although I don't like to make assumptions. So what is it like for someone that says, "Hey, Ally, I'm confused. I need some help." What is it like for an individual that wants to work with you? Did I lose you?
Sorry, you cut out there for a second. Yeah. Yeah, I
When
think
they
it's
come to you
funny.
at a place of feeling like they want to design a relationship.
Yeah. And there can be some interesting overlap too, whether, it's somebody who's unpartnered or somebody who's partnered, because sometimes I'll get couples who are interested in dating together, other people. So there can be some overlap in strategy, whether it's dating or designing or redesigning a current relationship or expanding a current relationship, or sometimes what's called de-escalating. So I'd love to chat a little bit too about how we look at, quote, endings of relationships and how we define that as failure. And like to your point, being in a relationship for 26 years where you feel judged, put down, control, etc., it's not serving you. How is that a success versus stepping out of it, culminating that relationship, completing that, to create opportunity for yourself to grow and potentially make new relationships that are more supportive. So what I initially do is, first of all, I define success. Whatever client you are, partnered, unpartnered, what does success look like? Why are we here? Because I'm not a therapist. We're not going to be like spending time in the past and analyzing, pathologizing, diagnosing. That's not what I do. If a client comes to me and it seems like maybe they need to do a little bit of that as well, I have some wonderful referrals I send them. And my work can be done in conjunction with a therapist, but it is not therapy. It is coaching. It's about, okay, maybe we look at the past for a moment to understand how you got here. We look for patterns and we say, where do you want to go? What is success? Let's define success and let's look at what you're doing now that is either in or not in alignment with that. And that can look so many different ways. Maybe they're not dating at all and, they're coming out of a divorce and they haven't dated in 20, 30 years. It's a completely different landscape. There's literal technology now that didn't exist back then, let alone, social norms, expectations, etc. So we're still going to start with, what does success look like? Does success look like you have a date every Friday night? Does success look like you're engaged in a year? Like what does success look like? And really, what does success feel like? Because those external kind of measures aren't always necessarily what you think they're going to be. So we define that, we create, a strategy, we bring in tools. I am actually going to be launching a matchmaking service as well in the new year, which I'm very excited about. Also launching some retreats in partnership as well, specifically for women that are coming out of divorces and looking to reinvent themselves and understand this new dating and relating landscape. For couples who will come to me, sometimes it'll be that juncture point. Is this, if they're married, is this marriage still serving them? So we understand what is the purpose of this marriage, first of all, because there's so many different components that make a relationship. You might be co-parents. You might be what's called nesting, living together. You might have a business together. You might be romantic partners. You might be sexual partners. There's so many different areas, but we lump them all into marriage or relationship. So if maybe there's an aspect of relationship that's no longer serving both partners, maybe neither of them is interested in having sex with each other, but they're fantastic co-parents. They run a household together, whatever it is. We look at how can we restructure this relationship and create agreements that everybody's in on that still maintain the parts of the relationship that are supporting them and make room for new ways of relating in the areas that aren't. So it's a lot of words, but it can look a lot of different ways. It can be figuring out what an open relationship might look like for them, whether or not, if they have a marriage contract, that's a necessary component still, if they have kids, assets, etc. Obviously, I would prefer someone like you if there were steps that needed to be taken in that area, not my specialty. My specialty is relationship design. So sometimes there's couples, again, maybe they don't want to open up and date other people. They want to stay together, but they want to add some more spice. They want to explore places and experiences they haven't before. Maybe they want to go to, play parties. So I help them understand how to build, again, a strategy for that to make sure they understand what is it they want out of those experiences, because expectations aren't always going to be the reality in a new space, especially. And whether people are coming to me for, we're looking to explore polyamory, or we're looking to explore play parties, or whatever that is, that doesn't mean we're going to have a session and then tomorrow you're going to go do the thing. I like to use I'm a whore for a metaphor. Sorry if there's kids listening. But I use swimming, right? So if you've never swam before and you've seen other people do it, looks pretty cool, maybe it's something you're interested in, you don't just go jump in the Pacific Ocean. You learn a little bit. You find an instructor. You go swim at the local pool. You take some lessons. You take some group lessons. You practice a little bit more in the pool. You're not just going into the Olympics or jumping into the deep end. You learn about the thing. So if all the information you have is what we're doing right now isn't working, that's still information. That's really useful. But that doesn't mean you know anything about what might. So that's where, working with educated and experienced professionals such as myself, and there's, tons of other wonderful people doing similar work, but inform yourself so you can make those decisions mindfully, with intention. And some of them aren't necessarily, going to go the way you thought. I've had a few couples actually come to me thinking, you know what, we're ready. We want to open up this relationship. We think it's going to spice things up. It's very much more about sexual exploration for them than anything else, which is not necessarily always what it is for everyone. There's emotions and other things involved as well. But we work together, again, same process. What does success look like? What is it that you're thinking these things are going to bring to you and to the relationship? And I've actually had a couple couples, two specific couples, realize that they actually want to stay monogamous. It was just a couple other adjustments and really coming from a place of curiosity and creating what I call a pleasure-led relationship, rather than the avoidance-based relationship that we've been talking about. Oh, we're doing all these things to avoid anything uncomfortable, avoid jealousy, avoid hard conversations. It's actually about giving them the skills to do that and lean into that and learn how to use things like jealousy, for example, as a tool that actually builds trust and builds deeper intimacy. Just like you don't get stronger by avoiding going to the gym, you don't build trust by avoiding talking about things like jealousy and that sort of thing. So I know it's hard to sort of say my 5-step process, there is an element of that, but it really is, again, when it's about relationship design, it's dependent on the individual or the individuals that I'm meeting with in that case.
I think you clearly described or painted a picture of what those options might look like. And I agree it's going to be different for everyone, as it should be, right?
It's your relationship, nobody else's.
That's right. And, getting married at, very young also versus a second or third marriage may also be different.
Yes,
And also
completely.
we're talking about not just people in marriages, but people in, unmarried relationships too. Relationships affect every aspect of our life. And I think having a more conscious, more aware process to align them with your core values and goals and what's essential to you for your definition, and your spouse or couple partner's definition of success is key too. And also noticing maybe where your definition of success and their definition of success
Yes.
may or may not
Key.
be aligned, right? So
Yes.
one person might say, it's X, Y, and Z, and the other says, no, it's A, B, and C. And, maybe that is time for therapy. Maybe that is, I don't know. It depends, you can see
Yeah.
that. And we also grow. I know as a married woman at 22, 23, when I got married, I was not the same person. And it wasn't just about me. I'm just giving me as an example as I was in my 40s. I
Oh, yeah.
had shaped, and even having my second marriage being 8 years at this point, you grow as a person. You
Well, some
constantly,
do.
well,
Yeah.
it's optimal, right? To,
Yes.
to have that
Growth
mindset. Some
mentality.
people are very stuck, and sometimes I do see a lot too, Ally, where one party in mediation, or when they come to me, because the average amount of time I work with individuals is 2 years, where one person is growing and changing and evolving, and the other's like status quo, baby. I'm wearing the
Yep.
same clothes, eating the same food, doing the same thing. I don't want to change or move or grow. This is it. And the career, the thing, I like my stagnant life. And the other's like, I'm peace out, I'm done. So
Yeah.
it isn't always just the relationship that makes them feel
Yes.
stuck. So it's tricky. So you mentioned the definition of success, but I'd also like to segue into what you mentioned before about a more gentle or more appropriate or more kinder way of how to end a relationship that maybe
Yeah.
is in alignment with that decision. I'd love your input on that. It's
Oh gosh,
fascinating
it's
to me as a divorce
yeah.
expert. So.
I know. Yeah, I think you probably see the majority of one sort of version of that, unfortunately, which is what we're most often sold. Um, and it's, God, I don't know if there's anything that breaks my heart more than seeing like what you referenced a few times, folks who are clearly have so many things that are working, but there's a couple key areas that aren't, which is okay. And that the only option then must be that we should end all manner of relationship, and why is my question. Again, when we get into the legalities of specifically a marriage contract, it's a slightly different conversation for sure, because there may be a valid reason to terminate that contract. But I've got one client offhand, and by no means the only example, but recent client offhand who his ex-wife and obviously they did terminate the marriage contract, but they still have a beautiful co-parenting dynamic. Both their kids are adults now, but they still, you're always a parent. That doesn't stop. They are physical with each other when they see each other, but they don't live locally anymore to each other. But they have a beautiful friendship, sexual relationship, co-parenting. But the marriage part, the legal contract of marriage was no longer serving what that was. But they didn't need to now then hate each other because that one part of the relationship was no longer serving them. There is so much value in remembering that ideally at some point this person, wherever you are now, was someone you, I hope, admired, was attracted to, felt good things for in your heart. And there is no need to throw everything out just because there's a sticking point or there's an area that needs some renegotiation. So if there is some version of an end or termination or de-escalation, whatever you want to call it, why do we have it? I can answer my own question. It's easier to be angry at someone, for sure. Don't get me wrong. When we don't have the, skills and emotional development communication to navigate somewhat uncomfortable feelings, anger is by far the easiest. It's the most useful. There's a lot of motivating energy connected with anger. You can cut stuff off, just burn that tie. But you're also robbing yourself of a lot of potential development. We don't grow without discomfort. It is physically and emotionally impossible to grow without discomfort. You build muscle by tearing the old muscle down. So it's a requirement. You can show your children, for example, if those exist, that there are so many ways to love and to grow a relationship and to change a relationship that doesn't have to be love or hate. There's so much space that we're missing out on in between the two. Why is it this good guy, bad guy? We go right back to the Disney movies, the fairy tales, the rom-coms. These are the models that we're given, and they're robbing us of so much. There's so much beauty in navigating a relationship change or a relationship end. Am I saying that it's not going to be uncomfortable, or there might not, there's not going to be pain? Of course. But ideally, you're both still acting with the best interest of each other at heart. That's a possibility. I'm not saying every single situation this is possible, but there are so many where it is that don't even get to explore this, because it's just like, well, we're not having sex anymore. I mean, I still think you're great and all this other stuff, but we're not, I mean, obviously we need to end everything. And you don't. It's kind of the short answer on that. There is, just like there is, should be ideally a strategy for dating, a strategy for maintaining a long-term relationship. There can be a strategy for ending a relationship too. It doesn't have to be this, hero villain story every time.
Beautifully said. More people should live by that. Doesn't have to be a hero villain story all the time. So you've got a lot of exciting things going on in your life and your work. So please share, maybe not everything you're doing, but share.
Take notes.
Share with everybody what you've got coming up and what's on your plate.
Yes, a few things. I'm going to chill out a little bit for December if I can, but a lot of new things in the new year, like I mentioned. So my company, Passport to Pleasure, it's a global platform, passport2pleasure.com. It's the number 2, Passport to Pleasure. Same thing on all the platforms as well, Instagram, Substack, YouTube, TikTok. You can also follow me, Ally Iseman, on Instagram as well if you want a little bit more. Passport to Pleasure is specifically relationship design, but then I also share, spicy travel and yummy vegan food and stuff like that on my personal page. But we're going to be, in addition to what I already offer, which is I work with a limited number of private clients at a time. I only have 5 coaching clients at a time, so I can really give the level of integrity in my work that I'm committed to. So I do private coaching on a application basis. I also actually consult with brands who are looking to step into the erotic lifestyle space and work with events and communities and things like that. And I have a plethora of digital resources that looks like relationship design courses, workshops, all kinds of online resources people can use to learn how to, master jealousy, deepen their intimacy. If you want to explore play parties, I have everything you need to do so in mitigating as much risk and discomfort as possible. And if you want to explore open relationships, what that might look like, anything you need to really, again, design relationships intentionally lives at passport2pleasure.com. I'm also exploring some partnerships in the new year, like I mentioned. There'll be some matchmaking offerings coming through, some in-person wellness-focused retreats, at least initially specifically focused on women that are coming out of divorces. And so we're going to help you really reclaim yourself, mind, body, and soul, and also learn what that dating and relating landscape looks like now, because it probably looks a little bit different than it used to.
Yes, unless you've been married a week, right?
Yeah, a lot happens in a week.
That's true. You're very correct. A lot can happen in a week. Well, I'm so glad we had this conversation, Ally, and particularly for those women who are, thinking about the next chapter of their life, right? Not just, we can't undo the past and remake that. And sometimes we do have to let bygones be bygones and put things to bed and create the next chapter with design and intentionalism. So if you're looking to do that, Ally is your girl. So, and everybody knows why I'm here as a credentialed private ADR, alternative dispute resolution mediator, who works with couples who want to avoid all things litigation. So there's no plaintiff, no defendant, no lawsuit, no court. We can avoid court hearings, all the unnecessary legal fees, and divorce swiftly, quicker.
Efficiently?
Efficiently, with a lot less drama and trauma. And if you are about to go through a high conflict divorce and you cannot have that optimal experience, that's okay. I got you. That's my specialty. Those clients of mine that are going through high conflict litigated cases that likely go to trial and sometimes even appeals, I work with you individually, one-on-one, from confusion to conclusion, to get them through it with the grace and the dignity that they need, because it's painful, it's expensive, and I don't want anyone to have to go through even a tiny bit of what I did. So thanks for listening, everyone. What is the best way, Ally, for people to learn more about you? Most efficiently, it would be Passport to Pleasure, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? If you visit my website, and I'll send a direct link as well to you. I'd love to leave your listeners with a free tool that I created called the Relationship Ratio Quiz. So if you are curious about non-monogamy, you don't have to be interested in actually opening up your relationship. But if you're curious about how intentionally designed your relationship is right now, again, whether you're monogamous, non-monogamous, what have you, this super fun, easy quiz that you would do with your partner helps you see if your relationship is intentionally designed or not. So that's the relationship ratio quiz, totally free. If you go to passporttopleasure.com, again, the number 2, then it will pop up there as well. But I can I'll share a direct link with you as well for folks who are interested in that.
It all boils down to intentionality. Yeah.
100%.
In life. Thank you, Ally. And everybody knows I wish I could make it best, but we're going to make it better. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. And here's to 2026. Raise your glass, even though it's lemon water.
A giant water tanker.
That's right. Here's to 2026.
Stay hydrated in 2026.
Beautiful goal. All right. All my love. Until next time. See you soon.